This One Time in Real Estate, Season 2, Episode number 23. I don't even know where I am. Let's see if we can find the old mark.
Camera.
So what's it on today? What are we talking about? What do we got?
Okay, well, I'm going to interview you today because I want to know, what was your first job ever?
What was my first job? So I was an entrepreneur. I freaking loved, and I'm sure you could understand that. My first job ever was detailing cars, and it was classic car care. And so what I did was I actually would just go around with flyers, and if I saw a nice car in anywhere in the lot with my parents, I would say, stop. And then what I would do is I would put it on the windshield. And I started getting calls. And then I got a real job at Sportsman's Park, Ladue.
Yeah.
You ever been to Sportsman's Park?
I have been there, yeah.
I love Sportsman's Park. So I get a job there. I'm a bus boy. Now, by the way, if I was the owner and Mark Gelman worked for me, I would have fired my ass. Here's the reason. I'm a bus boy.
Yeah.
Heart of Ladue. Mm-hmm. Awesome cars all over.
Totally.
Porsches, Mercedes, Ferraris, right? What does old Marky do? Old Marky takes the same flyers, so I would seat people, and then if it were quiet, I'd run my butt out to the parking lot and put flyers on every nice car. And then I would get calls. And by the way, I was not even 16. I had to have my parents. I had to have my parents take me to wash these cars. So I had people that I washed their cars every week at their home.
Wow, like a book of business.
Yeah. And then I had people that I would detail their cars, wash, wax, shine. And I loved shining those wheels. They were always deep dish wheels, and I would use a toothbrush, get in every spoke. I mean, hours and hours. But then what happened was my mom is a decorator, or was a decorator, and she started decorating some of the Cardinals. And so like Ozzie Smith, Terry Pendleton.
Oh my gosh.
And then what would happen is, so I vividly remember I started doing, for example, Terry Pendleton. He had a big AMG Mercedes. All those athletes, when the St. Louis Cardinal football were there, they all had these big Mercedes with the deep dish silver chrome wheels. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And did they come into Waterway?
Well, they did, yeah. If I was moonlighting in another location, I would see occasionally.
So I still remember Otis Anderson.
You mean St. Louis Rams or St. Louis
No,
Cardinals?
it was the football Cardinals. Well, the baseball Cardinals.
Yeah.
But there was the football Cardinals, and then they moved to Arizona.
Okay.
So it was the St. Louis Cardinals football.
Got it.
St. Louis Cardinals baseball.
Okay.
St. Louis Cardinals Big Red. So it was Al Bubba Baker, Theodis Brown, Randy Love, Otis Anderson. So it was like their license plate, OJ 32. Jet 81 was Roy Green. Stump 30, Stump Mitch. So I remember all these. And so I started doing that. And I'm a little kid. And I would go like to lunch with like Terry Pendleton. And he was like the third baseman, maybe Hall of Famer, I don't know. And then people would come up and ask for autograph. I'm just chilling. I'm just this little kid.
That's nuts.
Just hanging out. And then I just started building it. And then fast forward, my brother, Jeff, who's 3 years older than me, you know what? He don't have much to do this summer. I might as well put him to work.
Hiring him.
Yep. So then I hired Jeff, and then I kept building it. And I remember I kept them on index cards. And I had my whole portfolio on index cards. And then what happened was I actually then went up. My phone's beeping, but it's okay. I actually then went to Indiana University, freshman.
Okay.
So what am I going to do? I got this whole book of business.
People are relying on you.
My wife, Wendy, she's 2 years younger. So I go off to Indiana. She's a junior. One of her best friends, who I was best friends with this gentleman's sister, Sissy Block, was in my grade.
Okay.
Jerry Block, who was Wendy's best friend. Why not hire Jerry while I'm at Indiana? Jerry, you're going to hold the fort down here and clean cars for me.
Yep.
And all you're going to have to do is just send me checks.
It's perfect.
And
How'd
so
that go?
funny enough, amazing. Funny enough, I'm at a wedding about 6 months ago. And I'm with Jerry, lives in Brooklyn with his wife and kids. He's a lawyer.
Okay.
First thing we start reminiscing about, personalized car care. How you got to use that toothbrush, Jerry. You got to. That's it. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. But I learned how to hustle. I learned grind. And by the way, I'm working on these cars were $100,000, $200,000. And I'm like, kind of stressed, but it's okay. And that's it. That was my first job.
I have so many questions.
Yeah, bring them on. I know we got a couple more minutes, so let's go.
I appreciate the entrepreneurial spirit. That's pretty impressive. I did not know that your book of business, that is very impressive. I guess my first question.
Carol Avens, I can say it now. She was actually one of my first clients, lived in Big Carswell, right up the street.
Oh, nice.
Big Carswell, probably a $3 million house, went and washed her car. Ken Graham, he owned a title company. I wasn't in real estate. He owned the title company. Had a Porsche turbo convertible. Washed his. I mean, I could name you the wealthy people that I just did their car.
So were you licensed and insured?
Excuse me? It's great. And I apologize, people. We have a little clicking, but I don't think you can even hear it. Was I licensed and insured? I don't even know what that meant.
How did you get all of your... I knew that answer, but I just had to ask. How did you get all of your supplies? It was like in the trunk?
Yeah,
Your
just
parents'
bought
car?
them. Yeah, I had tubs, carried them. But
How did you get the water and the...
Oh,
you just
I
borrowed
used
it?
those.
Okay.
Used their
okay.
hose.
Okay.
But the number one thing I used, and I don't even know if they sell them, but I have to give street cred to one of my best friends, Rick Weinstein. Rick Weinstein taught me about the absorber.
Okay.
Did you ever know about the absorber?
The towel?
Yeah, the chamois?
Of course.
No, you did not.
I do.
No, you did not. So anyway, the chamois absorber, this thing, literally, I could drop a bucket of water in the middle, wipe it up, squeegee it out, go back, and I could have that whole thing. So I used this. The absorber is literally my best friend. Came in this tube. It was a chamois. You take off both. Yeah, that was it.
Did you get wholesale prices on your products?
No, I just bought them right off the rack.
Yeah.
You know why? Because I was getting paid.
You're a kid, yeah. You
I
didn't
was
even
getting
know.
paid.
Did you invoice people or did they pay you?
Oh yeah, I used like a QuickBooks thing.
Gosh.
100, like I was charging 180 to 200. I mean, if they wanted my service, Carol Avens paid me, I think like $45 a week to wash your car, inside, outside, vacuum and everything. But like my parents, we had to drive from Creve Court to Clayton. It took me about an hour and a half to do that every week. And then I would sometimes do their other cars. But it was just it. It was just my jam. It was in my control.
I am so impressed. That's so great. Thanks for sharing that with us.
Well, what about your first job?
Oh man. It's really strange that my first job was also car detailing. And I loved it. I did it. It was not my own company. It was a well-known company in St. Louis. And I initially did it because I liked a guy that worked there. And I was like, well, that'll
You
work
mean
out.
you liked him?
I liked him.
Okay. That's why my wife plays golf. She liked the golf instructor. So that always goes, that's good.
So it seemed like the right thing to do. When I interviewed, I knew I had to have my driver's license, but I actually hadn't turned 16 yet. But so I was like, yeah, I'll have it. And so then I got the job, and then I had to go and pass my test right away because I was like supposed to start the next day, but I did. So that worked out really well. And then it just took off from there. I was initially a line. Did the line. I cleaned the cars and enjoyed that a lot. And then they asked me to be a cashier, which was like sort of a promotion, but you didn't make as much money because you didn't make tips as a cashier. But it was nice on the really terrible weather, hot summers and cold winters in St. Louis. So that was nice. And then I secretly always wanted to be a service consultant because they were the ones that sold the washes and they got commission. And I don't know, I guess I wasn't able to. They didn't. They wanted me to stay as a cashier, and but then eventually, after 3 years, I transitioned into another role. But yeah, I'll never forget. It was I loved the people. There was so much to learn. So and I learned a ton about how to keep my car clean, which was obviously great. And I learned about sales.
Well, in retail, I mean, there's nothing like working with pissed off customers, nice customers, good. You learn about America and you learn about people. Totally. But here's the other thing. So I love commission. I love the opportunity to have unlimited income. So the same way you liked cashier promotion but didn't love it because you got away from the tips, the other job I did during that is I valet cars at Cardwell's in Clayton.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And then what I would do is they would always need people, so I would bring my friends. Matter of fact, I'm with Joey Boehm last night, and we're talking about the old days. And we would go after the Steak and Shake, and all we would do is count our money. We would just count it like 10. Did you ever count your tips? Just keep counting them? Mm-hmm. You're like, I can't believe this. And that's what I did. I just kept counting tips. And we have a good story, though. We'll save it for next time about the car crash, though. When I was valeting somebody's baby of a car, the most special car.
Oh, no.
And I did a number on it. But it's all right.
Oh,
it's all right.
Gosh,
the only other thing I can tell you, and I know that you used to identify, you used to remember people very well and the car they drove, and you'd have nicknames, but you'd also do a nice job servicing. Yeah. My jam in the car business, easiest thing in the valet, how do you make the most amount of money, do you think?
Probably keep it up front.
See, we're two peas in a pod right there. See, all these questions, I always sometimes get nervous before I ask. But by the way, I think you may be like 10 for 10, 20 for 20. Like literally every question I ask that I know the answer to, you do. Absolutely. You know what, Sarah? I'm going to keep it up front for you. Always. I can't remember his name, but I could picture him to this day. I used to keep his Cadillac right up front. He wore plaid pants, he was very preppy, like the yellow, blue, red, like the plaid pants, a blue sport coat and a blue Oxford, like parties in the park and all that, because I was at Cardwell's, so he would go kick it.
Love it.
But I would always, I'll keep it up front for you. That was always worth. By the way, you know what happens if they didn't give me a good tip and they were up front?
Moving it.
This is the last time they ever saw. That was the last time they ever saw up front. Hey, I know we have to wrap this up. Was there anything else?
Yeah, I was just going to say it's funny because I don't know if did you do any type of client satisfaction? Like, did you have your people fill anything out when you detailed their car?
No, that's good, but I didn't. I didn't like feedback then. If they didn't like my job, I didn't like that.
Waterway was the first I just said where I worked.
It's all right. That's cool. Well, you've only have great things to say about Waterway.
I'm actually,
you should brag about them.
I learned a ton, but that was the first place that I learned about the customer satisfaction survey, and I will talk about. But it's great because, gosh, how important are those now? I mean, anyway, it's interesting. So we'll have to talk about that story some other time.
Well, is that a wrap? Is that all you wanted to know?
Yeah, I think. Should I? I mean, man, what an enlightening
it's so fun
podcast, because that just shows.
I still have my business card. Personalized car care.
You were destined for great things.
I'll show you the business card.
I want one.
I'm going to bring it in for the listeners. Anything else?
That's a wrap.
Have an amazing day. Let's wrap this sucker up. Is that good? That's it.